The universe, an ever-expanding canvas of wonder and beauty. In our pursuit of knowledge, humanity has attempted to understand the intricate mechanisms in which our universe operates on for centuries, many of which found their answers in beings of immeasurable power, beings otherwise known as gods. With such power at their command, an unnerving confidence is to be expected. But what happens when a god comes across something they fear? God, a title associated with tremendous power, influence, and skill. It's also what self-absorbed players like to call themselves whenever they flash over a wall correctly. But no, I will not be teaching you about god complexes today, despite how fun of a topic that is. This time I decided to put on my old theory cap that has been idly gathering dust since my Project Yi video. So I was looking up information on Aurelian Sol when I got to thinking, what other gods could exist within League of Legends? After doing a little research, I believe I found a worthy candidate for the title of god. So sit back and let me show you who I think is a god that has been hiding in plain sight from us. Alright, so what I did was I looked at some characteristics of the already confirmed gods of Runeterra, 2 specifically, and noted similarities between them. After that, I used the similarities as a checklist of what to look for. So let's look at these characteristics. First, starting with Aurelian Sol. Aurelian Sol is the closest thing to a concrete god that you can actually observe. Born in the first breath of creation, he roamed the vast nothingness, seeking to fill a canvas of incalculable breadth with marvels whose twinkling spectra brought him considerable delight and pride. Translation? This dragon created everything in space. Yes, his theme mostly revolves around stars and not planets per se, but here's a quick tidbit on astronomy. Astronomers do not fully understand how the solar system was born, but the standing theory is that the explosion of a star, which is called a supernova, caused a cloud of interstellar gas and dust to collapse in on itself, forming a flat spinning disk that continued to spin faster and faster, and then a lot of more steps happened. Look, I'm not an astronomer, I'm studying psychology, but the point is, it continued to spin until gravity did its thing and clumped the denser materials together to form our planets. If you want to learn more, I'll provide some helpful links in the description, but the point of this is that the theory states that a supernova caused the solar system. And this is literally what Aurelian Sol does. He throws a forming star at you and makes it go supernova. Austin should totally do a science video on this. As Aurelian Sol tested his power in the vast cosmos of space, he must have caused a few stars to explode. To him, he was just seeing what he could do, but he inadvertently set the formation of the solar system in place. So he literally made the planets by accident, allowing evolution to take place, which means he made life by accident. Aurelian Sol also has had his fair share of devoted worshippers from across the universe. Flattered by this audience of countless worlds, he became fascinated by their fledgling civilizations, who crafted amusingly self-centered philosophies on the nature of his stars. Desiring a deeper connection with one of the few races he deemed worthy, the cosmic dragon selected the most ambitious species to grace with his presence. So Aurelian Sol has one heck of an influence on humanity, but he's not infallible. Aurelian Sol has one hell of a grudge against the Targonians. I'll get more into that later. Now let's move on to the next established god, Nagakeburos. No, that's not the actual god, that's only the idol of god, which Alawi uses to summon the power of Nagakeburos. I really love that name, by the way. Nagakeburos. It's just really fun to say. While Aurelian Sol can be credited for essentially creating everything, Nagakeburos is responsible for the willpower in all living beings. Or at least that's how I interpret it after reading Alawi's lore. Nagake Boros has an organized religion devoted to spreading its message. The 3 central tenets of the religion include: every spirit was born to serve the universe, desire was built into every living being by the universe, and the universe only moves toward its destiny when living creatures chase their desires. Alawi refers to this as motion.
Blessed is motion.
When the living being is striving to complete what their heart truly desires, despite what moral implications it may have, that person is considered to be in motion, thus fulfilling their duty to the universe. It's essentially having the will to pursue your desire despite the setbacks the world can throw at you. Nagake Boros is capable of judging the soul of humans to determine if they truly are in motion. As the truth bearer, which is similar to being the prophet of Nagake Boros, Alawi is tasked with ensuring people are in motion through the trial of the Kraken Priestess, in which she literally rips out your soul and forces you to fight for it. If you survive, you truly are in motion. If not, you're dead. Not much more to it. Now, the religion's focus on motion is probably inspired by Nagake Boros itself. We don't have concrete depictions of what the god looks like, but we do have a description. Nagake Boros is usually depicted as an enormous serpent head with tentacles spiraling around it in endless motion. The endless motion part is probably where the whole concept of motion came from. We can also see what Nagake Boros' tentacles look like because Alawi is able to draw upon the power of the god itself to create them. These aren't the actual tentacles, but are instead manifestations of Nagake Boros' own soul. Now, if I was MatPat or Lockstin, I would try to calculate the actual height of each tentacle relative to Alawi's height in the game, but since I'm not really good at that, I'ma just say here. Look at these tentacles. They're pretty big. Now imagine the actual god. You're smart, you'll figure it out. Alright, so now that we have a good understanding of these two gods, we can do what I said at the start of the video and use similarities between them as criteria to determine any other possible gods on Runeterra. First, they have a place of worship. Aurelian Sol travels the entire universe, so he isn't specifically tied to one place, but he was first called upon at Mount Targon, and now only descends there. Meanwhile, Nagake Boros is cited as having multiple temples for worship. Second, they have devoted worshippers. Aurelian Sol has graced several different species with his presence, which has caused people to worship him. Nagake Boros has priestesses devoted to maintaining the temples and teaching people the ways of God. Third, they are tied to a specific region. Again, Mount Targon is his region since that is the place he chooses to descend upon when he returns to Valoran. Nagake Boros is supposedly a sea serpent, so it can be considered as a water deity, and water surrounds the entire planet. However, the worship of Nagake Boros is primarily done on the Blue Flame Islands of Bilgewater. Considering the fact that Alawi can summon the powers of her god and is a resident of Bilgewater, we can assume that Bilgewater is Nagake Boros' region. Fourth, they have great power. We already covered how Aurelian Sol literally throws supernovas at people. Meanwhile, Nagake Boros is capable of ripping people's souls out. Lastly, these gods are gigantic. I already explained how the size of Alawi's tentacles gives us an indication of how big Nagake Boros could be. But check out Aurelian Sol. Alright, you see here? Yeah? He looks pretty cool, right? Oh, but wait a minute, what's this tiny little rock here? Well, it would appear to be that is Mount Targon. A mountain with a civilization. Makes you feel pretty insignificant, doesn't it? Alright, so using this criteria, I tried to think about what else could be considered a god from Runeterra, and I believe some of the other possible gods in League could be from the Void. The first clue I got was from Malzahar's lore. When Malzahar's cracked feet finally failed him, he found himself kneeling at the base of a bizarre crumbling obelisk. Beyond it lay the alien geometry of a ruined city, and the giant decaying idols of dark and horrific gods. This ancient city resides in the deserts of Shurima, and was known as Ikathia. It was in this lost civilization where Malzahar was infused with the essence of the Void. It is unknown what happened to cause this city to fall to ruin, but what we can infer is that this civilization had knowledge of the existence of the Void. After all, it was in this city where dark and horrific gods were worshipped that Malzahar just so happened to get power from the Void? That's too much of a coincidence. I'm also willing to go as far as to say that they worshipped creatures from the Void. Real-world ancient civilizations constructed their own statues of gods they worship. From the ancient Egyptians to the ancient Greeks to the ancient Romans, it was common to depict gods in various art forms. So I believe it is fair to say Acathia worshipped the Voidborn. So the Void already satisfies one of our criteria, devoted worshippers. Even if they no longer exist, the fact of the matter is that they existed to begin with. Also, Malzahar, much like Alawi, was granted power from the Void in order to help carry out the will of the Void, which is essentially to merge the two worlds together so that the Void can feast on this universe. This is the task of a prophet, hence the title, Malzahar, the Prophet of the Void. Aurelian Sol didn't have a prophet, but since Nagaki Boros does, I figure this is a noteworthy comparison. So let's review real quick. Place of worship, Acathia. Worshippers, citizens of Acathia. Region? Well, the Void would be the region of this god. So that's all we got. Moving on. Continuing my lead into the Void, what I found suggests that the Void is a bigger threat to Runeterra than I originally thought. We discussed how powerful Aurelian Sol is, but I also said he wasn't infallible. Targon was able to conjure up magic powerful enough to make Aurelian Sol obey the commands of the Targonians. They did this by offering a crown of star gems to him, but the crown was infused with some sort of magic powerful enough to direct Aurelian Sol's mind itself. The further from the reach of that tiny world he traveled, the more he felt a grasping at his very essence. He could hear voices shouting, commanding from across the cosmic expanse. The Targonians used Aurelian Sol's power mostly for war and expansion, but they also used it to fight against the Void.
Pantheon shouts another command at me, but I ignore her words. This anomalous fissure in the universe entrances me. This is not the first of its kind I've had to deal with, but this one feels different. And I can't help but admire the marvelously terrifying manipulation of the barriers between realms. Few beings could fathom its complexities, let alone possess the sheer magnitude of power needed to rend the fabric of existence. In my heart, I know a wound so exquisite could never be orchestrated by scuttling creatures. No, there must be more behind this intrusion. I shudder at the thought of what kind of entity is capable of inducing such a volatile rift. I don't need Pantheon's barked orders to tell me what to do next. Her array of requests has always been of a rather limited imagination anyway. She wants me to hurl a star at the rift, as if one can simply cauterize such moldering interdimensional abrasions and be done with it. These obtuse demigods are my captors? Fine. At least they're not too far off in their logic by thinking a few searing cosmic wonders will remedy this problem. I will continue to play the role of the obedient servant. Just a little while longer.
So Aurelian Sol, the creator of the universe Runeterra belongs to, is not only impressed, but also shudders, trembles at the thought of what could be on the other side. Targon's actions seem more understandable now. Perhaps it does take the power of Runeterra's god to rival the power of the gods in the Void. Now, I've just been talking about the Void itself. I haven't mentioned any specific champions. I don't believe all of the champions from the Void are gods. I think it's fair to assume that not all Void monsters are equal in power. However, by using the same criteria we established earlier, we can finally identify a candidate that we can theorize as being a god from the Void. A god powerful enough to earn Aurelian Sol's respect and fear. And that god is Vel'koz. Vel'koz, the Eye of the Void. What makes me say he could be a god of the Void exactly? Acathia's worship and the Prophet Malzahar are criteria that can fit any Void creature, since it's not like they ever specified which to worship. But when you think about Vel'koz's power, it's rather disastrous. With his unceasing gaze, Vel'koz fires disintegrating beams that obliterate and analyze all in his path, feeding him vast quantities of information. Vel'koz is capable of deconstructing anything right down to its basic elements. In terms of physics, disintegration is a process of subatomic particles dividing into even smaller particles. This is why Vel'koz leaves nothing behind, because he divides the particles until there's visibly nothing there. That's pretty darn powerful. Also, if you think of this symbolically, Vel'koz is in many ways the exact opposite of Aurelian's soul. While Aurelian's soul is indifferent to the lives of humans and other lesser species, only choosing to appear before a selected few, Vel'koz indulges in the knowledge he gains from them. Aurelian's soul seeks to expand the universe with his stars. Vel'koz seeks to annihilate for the sake of learning. Aurelian's soul creates, Vel'koz destroys. Also, in the monologue I read to you guys, what really caught Aurelian's soul's attention was the rift in reality that was connecting the Void and Runeterra. I'm just saying. Now that we've covered power, we can move on to the only part that doesn't match our criteria entirely. Size. Don't get me wrong, Vel'koz is gigantic, and we can use the helmet bro here to get an idea of his size. You can see within this frame that Vel'koz's eye alone is roughly the same size as Helmet Bro's head and torso combined. Same with this portion of his tentacle. While this is certainly sizable, it doesn't really compare to Aurelian's soul, who pretty much takes up the whole sky. So if we're gonna keep using our criteria, then Vel'koz doesn't necessarily fit the bill entirely. But who's to say that he still isn't a god from the Void? With that kind of power, as well as the evidence of worshippers from Acathia, and Malzahar being a prophet for Vel'koz, technically he's a prophet of the Void in general, but it still counts. I think we make a pretty good case for Vel'koz. And who knows? If Vel'koz isn't a god from the Void, regardless, there is still a being that caused Aurelian's soul to be impressed and fearful. If it's not Vel'koz, then there's something else there. Something worthy of the title God.